like to call the meeting to order, and as directed by Manitoba Health, we're requesting people avoid close contact within 2 meters with anyone showing symptoms of a respiratory illness, such as coughing or sneezing. If you are experiencing flu-like symptoms, we're requesting that you excuse yourself from the room. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. The panel this morning, to my left is Mark Boretsky, and to his left is Gisela Rempel, and my name is Brent McIntyre, and I'll be the chair for this morning. Our assessor is Arka Adarkanov, and our secretary is Belhan Ropel. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. In the case of this particular hearing, it will be by affirmation. Be advised that comparisons of assessment of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decision on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side shall have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Thank you. And you may affirm the applicant and the assessor.
Please state your full name.
Arka Adarkanov.
You affirm the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Please state your full name.
Bradford Scott Borgstrom.
You affirm the evidence you represent is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Belhan. The first application on the docket is 963 Dugald Road, and Arka, you may proceed.
File number 195323, 963 Dugald Road, Business Assessment ID 2477, owners are J Transport Ltd. Premise area 13,168 square feet, base ARV $11.97 per square foot, including occupancy cost. Total annual rental value is $185,400. My recommendation is to confirm the assessed value. Page 2 provides picture of the subject property, aerial view. Page 3 provides street view of the subject property. We can see it's a building with a mix of yes, it's a garage, vehicle service garage with an office. Page 4. With City of Winnipeg comparables for vehicle service garages with an average of $13.95 and median of $12.50 per square foot. Page 5 provides a Board of Revision order for subject property in the realty hearing. The decision there is based on adjusted net operating income with capitalization rate of 7.05, assessed value $1,773,000. The decision, per my calculation, was based on $10.28 per square foot of the base area. Thank you.
Do you mind repeating that number?
1028.
Thank you. Brad, any questions?
I do. Good morning, all. The city has this property classified as a VSG, correct?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay, sorry. I'm going to have to ask you to. I can hear the chair just fine, but I was having trouble hearing the assessor and the clerk as well. So if I can just get them to speak up when they're talking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And so in terms of VSG, that means vehicle service garage, right?
Yes.
Okay, but there are different types of vehicle service garages, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, but the city, for assessment purposes, treats everything exactly one the same as the other, right?
Well, for the assessment purposes, City of Winnipeg looks at vehicle service garages and there is no distinction made, to my knowledge, in regards to whether it's
right. Okay, thank you. And so there is no distinction as between, for example, a service facility with lifts and pits and a service facility with no lifts or pits, or something that may include other things like a car wash, right?
Well, car wash is different. Yes, with a car wash it's different, right? Like
I'm sorry, you're cutting out again.
Is this better?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. City of Winnipeg has car washes. There's a separate distinction for a car wash. That's
okay. And you've not had a chance to inspect this property, correct?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Were you aware from the city's file? Did you have a chance to review the city's files on this property?
I had a chance to look over city files.
Okay. And so were you aware that there is actually part of this building as a car wash or a truck wash?
Part of it, okay, I guess, well, if the part of the building is a car wash, it's not a car wash, right? Like it still has to, there's lots of vehicle service garages in City of Winnipeg looks at as vehicle service garage when they have mixed use, and a lot of vehicle service garages have some area dedicated to it.
Okay, and the city's modeling doesn't distinguish one from the other, right?
Well, if it's a vehicle service garage, then it goes at the vehicle service garage. It's through a car wash and it becomes a car wash.
Okay, so other properties, for example, will have for example, a convenience store or other rental units as well as a car wash. In those cases, the city actually breaks out the car wash income stream, right?
Are you talking about gas stations?
As one example, but there are other examples where a car wash may be, incorporated, for example, into a strip mall.
In my limited experience, I didn't see that. I didn't come across this kind of example, so I cannot answer.
Okay, fair enough. Now, the subject property, you indicated you've not had a chance to inspect it, but you did look at the city's files. Did you have an opportunity to review the Board of Revision brief in respect of the 2020 realty assessment, which had a number of pictures of the property, interior and exterior within it?
I did not have a chance to look at the Board of Revision brief.
Okay, and so if we take a look at your page 4, these are a number of vehicle service related properties, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if any of these are land leases?
To my knowledge, they're all net leases per square foot.
Okay. Now, there will be a mix of properties in here, ranging, some will be tire shops, correct?
Yes, some are tire shops.
Okay, and some will be other uses. Do you know what those are?
Mechanic garages, body shops.
Okay. So in here, you've shown the average year built. Is that the same as the effective year built?
Actual year build.
That's the actual year built? Okay. Now, we don't show any information on here with respect to land building ratios, correct?
There is no information on page number 4 regarding to the land.
And in fact, nowhere within your brief is any information shown about that, right?
Business assessment is
right. But certainly in terms of a vehicle service garage, the size of the land area that the lot might, or the buildings might occupy on the lot might have an influence on the rent. For example, where vehicles go in for servicing, you're required to park them on the site, right? You can't park on Dougal Road here. So they would be required to park on the site, correct?
What exactly is your question?
So let me see if I can rephrase this. Depending on the use of a particular vehicle service garage, the land requirements, which will affect the rental rate it might attract, might be different. For the subject property, there is no street parking available. So any kind of parking, and in this case, it's actually a truck and trailer service facility, correct?
So I guess as far as parking goes, I guess land to building ratio is one of the factors that is being considered when the property is being rented out by the tenant.
But that's correct, but it is not considered within the modeling, correct?
I cannot speak to what is the model.
Okay. Most of these properties on your page 4 are, most of them, not all, are in high visibility, high traffic, almost retail locations, correct?
Well, some properties on my list are located on, I guess, busier streets, more commercial streets like Pembina or Portage. That I can.
Right, and some of them would be, for example, Midas muffler shops, right?
Correct.
And some of them will be tire shops where they retail and install tires. Yes.
Yes.
Those are very different than the subject property, correct?
When the city of Winnipeg assesses properties based on their based on the type of usage, and in this case it's vehicle service garage, there is no distinction.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark? No questions. Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
I have a question. Is there an appeal filed to the municipal board on this?
There is.
Is there?
Yes, there is, and it was filed by the appellant.
By the appellant?
Mm-hmm.
And you have a lot of comparisons here. What's your best comparison?
Okay. Well, when we look at it, we have size to look at it, and subject property is, I forgot what was the larger one, so we're talking about 13,000 plus square feet. So when we look at it, we have to look at proper sizes, and within that we have 3 properties at comparable number 6 at 1375 per square foot, comparable number 26 at 2879, and comparable number 28 815.
So one clearly is a fairly new building at prop number 26.
Correct.
What's the age of this building?
It's subject property has built in 1965 with 1997 addition.
1997.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions. Brad?
So I had some rebuttal, but I've obviously just having now a few minutes ago received the assessor's brief, not had a chance to prepare it or prepare it properly. But as one example, the comparison number 26 at Innsbruck, that is, I believe, a Fountain Tire. There is a relationship between Fountain Tire and ownership. There is a commonality between directors that I have certainly in realty hearings presented rebuttal evidence on. And so there are a number of these properties. I know the city has thinned them down a little bit, but there are at least that one, and I haven't had a chance to go over the balance of them to see whether or not they actually are pad leases or there are related corporations. Certainly in the case of the assessor's number 26, I believe that's a Fountain Tire, and that absolutely has some commonality at the time of the lease as between the directors of the company and the real estate holdings. So not a true arm's length lease there. So I'm going to now take you to our brief, and you can start at page 9. These pictures were actually taken in 2014. Nothing material has changed with the property in the time since then and now. I can tell you that there is a corporate relationship between the holdco and the opco. They are related corporations, and so any rental rate shown as in place is a book rent and not an arm's length lease should not be relied upon. So page 10, 9 and 10, we see some exterior shots, and page 11, and you'll see there that there are sort of two separate structures, and you can see that a little more clearly on our page 3 and 4. 4 gives you more of an oblique, and so there's a front building and a rear building, and so the subject property on page 4 is the one outlined in red. I can tell you that the adjacent property just to the right of that is exactly the same owner and same relationship with a holdco. So the one we're dealing with is actually outlined in red on page 4. And you can see it on page 11 where we're looking at the ground level, looking at the rear building. Page 12, we show you some of the office space within it. There's nothing remarkable. It's just typical of what you'll find. Page 13, you will see there one of the service bays. You'll see there that there is no hoist or lift in here. That it's not, while it's a bay, you'll see no rear door for driving out as you might find in a oil change facility. And you can see there the ceiling height, relatively narrow bay. Typically in a VSG, whether it's a tire service garage, an oil change facility, you will find a wide open space. You'll have many doors for entry, but you'll have a wide open workspace within. That's not the case here. Page 13 is some parts storage. You can see there the fluorescent lighting. It's not metal halide. On page 14, you'll see there the car wash area. Now, certainly in other properties, the city differentiates car wash income streams. And as we get to the assessor's evidence later, you will see a different rental rate applied to car washes or rental rate comparables for car washes. Bottom of page 14, that's the sort of, I call it a reception area as you walk in the front door. Page 15, you'll see more parts storage and stairs leading up to the upper mezzanine where there is a locker room and a lunch room on page 16. Let me know if I'm going too fast. And page 17, you'll also see some additional office space, but you'll also see another bay. Now, again, you'll see floor drains and you'll see water on the floor. This also has some car wash characteristics to it here. But again, no hoists, no lifts, not exactly a vehicle service garage per se. So we took a look at a number of rental comparables. We show those on our page 6. These are all vehicle service garage related. I have shown the addresses for all of them except for one, and I can tell you our number 4 is at 700 Morey Street. I can go through the uses if you'd like. Certainly our comparable number 2 and the assessor's comparable number 28 are exactly the same at 508 per square foot. I can tell you that that is, it's a client of ours. I can tell you that our rental rate shown there is correct. I don't know where the city got their information from. It may well be that it's not a true net lease and it had to be adjusted somewhat, but 508 is actually the calculated net per, 815. My bad, I was looking at the wrong row, I apologize. So 815 per square foot for our number 2 is exactly the same as the city is showing there. And then we have the rest. 329 Oak Point Road is a standalone service garage. There is another building on the property separate and apart, but this is a standalone arm's length lease of a service garage. I have personally inspected it and I've handled the realty assessment appeal on the property. 45 Lowson is a, if I recall correctly, a trailer repair facility. Moray, number 4, is an auto body shop. 120 King Edward is a Boyd auto body. 344 Oak Point Highway is Denray Tire, so it's a tire change shop. 84 Scurfield is another Boyd auto body, and 72 Scurfield is, the name of the tenant escapes me, but it is, as I understand it, vehicle service related. So we have, from our files, looked at these rental comparables, and all of these Altus, we've taken these from the Altus working files. So I have confidence in talking about what the properties are and the actual rental rates in place. You'll see there that the average is 745, the median is 748. Based on all of that and in considering the physical characteristics of the subject property, certainly there's a typo in the bottom line there. We're actually using 850 on page 6, 850 per square foot is the rent we're applying. We show the calculations on page 7, and you'll see there the rate of 850 per square foot that we're actually applying. There's no disagreement with respect to the occupancy costs, and so we're looking for a reduction based on all of that down to $139,740.
That's your presentation?
Thank you, yes.
Could I just ask both parties, are you using the same comparisons in all of these briefs?
Not necessarily from our end.
On my end, for vehicle service garage, it will be the same comparables.
So then we can just read it into the record for the next 11 properties because we've already seen it once.
Okay.
Okay. Is that okay, Brad?
Yeah, that works fine.
Okay. Thank you. And Arthur, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. So you have mentioned that subject property is a vehicle repair facility, correct?
I'm sorry, you're still breaking up.
Sorry, I'm kind of looking at you on the microphone this way. So
Okay.
You have mentioned that the subject property is a truck repair facility, correct?
Trailer. I think it's more trailers, but I think my understanding is that they do some truck, but I believe it's primarily trailer related for their own fleet.
Okay. You have mentioned a number of times that subject property doesn't have lifts or hoists. Is it typical for larger vehicles like trucks to have hoists in their repair facilities. To my knowledge, I just haven't seen one yet. So I'm asking you, would you confirm that it's not typical?
Well, trucks, not necessarily. Much depends on the physical structure. If you have the available ceiling height, or wall height, it's possible that they'll be in there. Certainly for trailers, they're not going to throw them up on a hoist. They're going to be worked on from ground level. They may elevate one end of a truck for some servicing, but certainly, generally speaking, it's going to be a different creature than other vehicle service related facilities.
So you would agree with me that subject property is lack of hoists and lifts is a proper decision by the business to operate on the type of vehicles they operate, correct? So it's not necessary.
It's not, well, Arcus, it's not a business decision and it's not related to a business decision. We are supposed to be assessing them on the basis of their current, as of the assessment year, current physical condition. That's what we're supposed to be looking at only. Doesn't relate to business decisions. We are not to consider hypotheticals. That goes back to the Shapiro case back in the olden days, 1987. And so it's the present physical condition as of the year of assessment that we are to consider in assigning, not just in terms of realty value, but in terms of assigning an appropriate annual rental value or business assessment.
And the present physical condition of the subject property, it is originally built 1965 with 1997 addition. Would you agree with me?
I believe that that's correct. And the city has assigned an overall effective age of 1997. Now, having said all of that, I think we both know that car wash areas, because of the high humidity, and you'll also see in the subject property, the other area with the drains in it, a larger area, are harder on the physical structure. And so the effective age might be a little optimistic in terms of what the city has assigned, because car washes, for example, have a shorter age life expectancy than other similar types of masonry or rigid steel structures.
But you wouldn't agree with you wouldn't argue with me that it is again we're going to hypothetical without you providing evidence that it is you cannot speak to it, right?
Well, I'm going by, well, actually, yes, I am Marshall certified. I'm familiar with the cost approach, very detailed. I've appeared in hearings at various levels for cost properties. And I can tell you from my personal research that car washes have a shorter life expectancy in the Marshall valuation tables.
But the information we have presented goes back to at least 2014, and we have said that nothing has changed, nothing drastically have changed with the property, correct?
I don't believe that I believe that the pictures that we took at that time, that there have been no upgrades, no major changes, and so it would be not dissimilar to what the pictures are showing.
A subject property with based on ages would be significantly newer than all of your comparables. Would you agree with me on that?
Well, when you look at the property itself, and maybe take a look at the picture on page 4 again, which shows you the oblique, you actually have two separate structures, one newer at the rear and one older at the front. Is it a 1987 effective age? I'm not certain of that, but I would agree, generally speaking, that the age of the properties generally speaking, I think that's is it really 1987? I don't think so. I think it's going to be actually effective age older than that. but it would be in line with these properties, perhaps somewhat newer. I would agree with that.
Those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
With your comparables, all but one vary in size between 10,000 or 10 or 11 and 17,000 square feet, with the exception of the first one that is half the size of the subject. What was the purpose of including that first one?
It was a vehicle service related facility that we had records on. It is certainly, I will agree with your observation that it is smaller. It is also the lowest rent of all of them. And you'll also take note that we've used a rent, whatever the calculation is, more than 50% higher than that rent in our estimate of the base rent for the subject. We're using $850 per square foot, and that one's, I would concur that that one's on the low side, but it is what it is.
And the 8 here, are they all of the vehicle service garages that you have records of?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Zal?
Yes, I want to make sure I have your facts correct. Can you hear me all right?
I can, thank you.
So this property was built in 1965 and it had an upgrade in 1997. Is that correct?
It had an addition built in 1997, and that's the rear building. As we look at the oblique on page 4, you'll see the front portion, that's the older building, and then you'll see the rear portion, which I believe is the 1997 structure.
Okay. And you indicated that the pictures you have provided were taken in 2014?
Yes.
The property is virtually the same today?
I don't have any reason to think otherwise. There are no significant upgrades or building permits on file that I've seen, nor have we been made aware of any by the owner. I handled this property in previous appeals, and I believe for 2020 as well, before this board. And so my opinions are based on a similar condition to what was observed in 2014.
And can you tell me how large the car wash portion of this property is?
I don't have a particular measurement of that area, but as you look at the pictures, there is one, let me just take you to it. If we look at page 14, the top picture, that's very clearly, it's actually a trailer wash, same idea. You can see there the brushes, and you can see there the fog. This was taken in January, so you can see there the steam or fog created by the water at that time. You'll see the ladder there so people can get up and access the top of the trailers. That is absolutely car wash. If we take a look at the other section, it is not fully car wash on page 17 at the bottom, but there is some, let's call it washing occurring in there. There you can see the water on the floor in that picture on the bottom of page 17. You'll also see the floor drains for that water to drain. So I don't have the exact sizes, but those are the two areas. Certainly the first area that I referred to would be solely I hesitate to use the word car wash, but we'll call it that, VCW area. I don't have the size of that, but certainly the picture on the bottom of page 17 is a much larger area. And I would suggest that, and you can see there the toolboxes and the other equipment, where it serves more than one purpose. So it's partly that, it's also partly service related.
And you would say that these pictures represent the way that this property exists today?
My opinions are based on that premise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mark has another question to ask you.
Just on the car washing, the vehicle washing, is this a place where the vehicles are washed off in order to service them? Or is this a place where people bring their trucks, get them washed, and off they go just in order to clean them up?
Yeah, no, I believe that this is a facility for their own fleet. So they bring them in, and they will wash them and take them out again, or they may wash them for servicing. It's likely both.
Okay.
And I have no questions. Thank you. The next property on the docket is 145 Warman Road, and Harvey, you may proceed.
File number 195327, 145 Warman Road, business assessment ID 54501, owners Cal Tire Limited. Premise area 11,833 square feet. Base ARV $15.93 per square foot. With the occupancy cost, annual rental value is $217,500. On page 2, we have pictures of the subject property, aerial view and street view. Page 3 are the comparables for vehicle service garages that they are exactly the same comparables we had in previous case. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brad?
Right, bear with me for one moment here. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my Adobe here. Bear with me. There we go. Thank you. So, Arca, this property is part of a multi-tenanted property on Warman Road, correct? On the realty roll end of it?
Yes.
And I see here that you show this on your page 1 as owner occupied, but that's not accurate, is it?
I believe it is accurate.
Okay. Do you know if the property was leased?
So as far as your first question, whether it's owner occupied based on the income and expense mailer that I have here, it's a fully owner occupied markets check. To the best of my knowledge, this property is owner occupied.
Okay, and the other occupant of the site is a Flying J gas station, right?
I believe so.
Okay. So the city shows here an air-conditioned area, fully air-conditioned area. That would include the service area as well, correct?
At this point, I could say that it's the entire 11,833 square feet.
Is that something that you've checked into? Let me come at this another way. It would be really unusual, wouldn't it, for the service area to be air-conditioned?
Oh, this is the information I have on file about.
I understand that. In your opinion, based on your experience, would it be unusual for the service area, and this is a tire store, a tire shop, would it be unusual for the service area to be air-conditioned?
Typically, for the majority of the properties, service area is not air conditioned.
Is not, okay. But you haven't checked on that, have you?
No, I haven't checked into this.
Okay. Now, as we take a look at your rental comparables on page 3, those are exactly the same as we just looked at, right?
Correct.
Okay. So you've stated that it's your understanding that the property is not leased. If it was leased, is that something that you would consider?
It would, exactly, what's your question? What would be considered if it was leased?
If the property was leased, is that something that you would have considered in preparing your evidence?
Consider, I'm not clear exactly what you want me to consider in preparing my evidence. So could you please be more clear on it?
I think this is a yes or no answer.
But it is, but I still wasn't.
Okay. So
Need to consider. That's why I wanted to ask for clarification.
let's hypothetically consider a circumstance where the subject property is leased. Is that lease something that you would consider in your evidence?
If it's a net lease, it's something we would consider, correct?
Okay. So there is a, as we look at your page 2 and we see pictures, the middle picture is taken from Warman Road, correct?
I believe middle picture is from Landrand view.
From La Jamodier? Okay. So as we look at the bottom picture, that shows the oblique of the property, and so the sort of bottom of the picture, that's the side of the building that's closest to Warman Road, correct?
Yes, so.
Okay. Now, were you aware that if you extended that picture a little bit, on the south side of Warman Road, opposite the subject property, is a leased Fountain Tire?
On the other side, I believe, yeah, there is a Fountain Tire.
Right. Were you aware that it was leased?
I didn't look into that property, no.
Didn't look at it, and it's not within your evidence, correct?
No, it's not.
So given that, or if it was a leased property, isn't that something that you might have considered?
If it was, yes.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
What is the age of this building?
(2015).
2015. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Giselle?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. So Brad, you're up.
Okay, so I'm going to start on our page 15. This is actually a land lease with a building on it. It is an arm's length lease as between Cal Tire and the owners, and you'll see on page 15, I verified this with Cal Tire personally, and so if we look on page 15, you'll see there that they have 2 different addresses for service. Cal Tire has its offices in Vernon, British Columbia. The landlord, SFJ Incorporated. So you'll see that Flying J, Shell Flying J, which is the other occupant, ownership on this property, is located to the west of the subject premise. I have included excerpt of this lease also showing the particulars of the rental rate. As we go through this hearing today, we're going to be getting into some gas stations, and you'll see the assessor using land lease imputed rents. I don't think that that's the right approach, but if that's the approach that we're going to use, then we should also be applying it in this case as well. So we show the details of the lease and we show the annual rental rates on page 20. We've also included the sketch of the building from that document on page 22. The other thing I'm going to take you back to So when I looked at this property and I saw that the service area was also shown as fully air conditioned, it raises red flags with me and all kinds of alarms start going off. So I checked with our client and we show that on our page 12. Now I have left the person's identifier in there. I have redacted their actual email and phone number, but I can tell you that I reached out. They have confirmed that the air-conditioned area is limited to the showroom and office areas only. The shop and other areas have heaters for winter. Now, I went through some calculations. They sent me some building diagrams. I went through the calculations on it. I calculate that area as a total of 1,573 square feet. That's shown on page 9. Bear with me. Okay. And so we turned to a number of rental comparables to try and assign a rental rate. We look at the overhead on page 3. You'll see there the picture, the red dot, that's actually on the subject premise. As you look at the development west of that on Warman Road, that's the Flying J or the Shell Flying J gas station, and then they have some additional lands west of that gap. The building that you see at the bottom of the picture there, that's the Fountain Tire I was talking about. So it's directly opposite the subject premise. We take a look on page 4, and you'll see there the oblique views. You'll see the subject property at 145 Warman. And again, on the top picture in the top right-hand corner, that's the Fountain Tire. And as we take a look at the bottom picture, moving to the upper left, that's again the Fountain Tire on the south side of Warman Road. So we took a look at a number of lease comparables. We show that on page 7, and the first one I show there, this is actually a rent that was presented by the city. It's their information, and so I rely on their rental rate that's shown there. I don't have any additional information on it. Certainly older than a subject property, and so you'll see there the details. We show a number of other ones, 1500 Regent in this case, that's an auto body shop. And then we show a number, the same comparables for the balance of them. So we have 2 additional ones here, one being across the street. Average 776, 808. We've applied $10 per square foot. Now I have corrected the air-conditioned areas or the city's figures on that, and we show those calculations on page 9. So I show 2 different calculations there. If we accept the city's premise that land lease imputed rents should be accepted, that works out to $6.34 per square foot as a base rent. That's the $75,000 per year or per annum rent for the lands. We show the occupancy costs with our adjusted air-conditioned area. So if we are to be using land leases, then our request would be $100,500. I don't think that that's the correct approach. Certainly for business assessment purposes, land leases for gas stations with pumps, tanks, and canopies not being assessed for business assessment purposes. I think that the proper way is to come at it using rental comparables themselves. We've applied $10 a square foot. And so based on that and the adjusted rental comparables, if we're using rents, and as I said, if the land leases and the imputed rents from that are to be disregarded, then our request would be $143,820. Excuse me, I have to cough. Excuse me, thank you. And I believe that that's the information we wanted to cover here.
That's it?
Thank you, yes.
Thank you. Art, questions?
Well, I noticed that you have provided some rents. Those are net rents that you have personally, on your page 7, those are net rents that you have personally examined.
That I have personally what?
Looked at.
Well, I thought I made it clear. So number one, the fountain tire at 140 Warman, that was actually a city rent comparable. That was a rent that was used by the department in a previous appeal. And I have no reason to not believe it. The balance of them are taken from our files.
Okay, and there's lots of rents that are, yes, the lease start date goes back to like.
Yes, and you'll also see that there were some steps. For example, 2000, the bottom ones were stepped up in 17, 16, or 17. Typically, like 1500 region starts. Forget about the step ups when you look at the start dates. 2015. Number 2 was May 1st of 17. Number 3 was October 1st of 2016. Same with number 6, September of 16. Number seven was March of 2018. So you will always have a range in dates as you're looking at any sort of transactions in the markets.
So you would agree with me that newer leases that signed more recently would represent more accurate market information. Would you agree with me on that?
Not necessarily. You look at things like steps, you look at term of lease. So certainly as you're looking at these, I think that all of these would be something that I would consider and rely on. And in fact, that's what I'm doing.
But again, a lease is signed in January of 2010 or 2008, even though they are steps, they wouldn't truly represent most accurate information.
I'm going to disagree with you. Where you have a stepped rent in place, that's the anticipatory rate. It could be actually higher than market, it could be at market, or it could be lower than market. In this case, certainly falls within an expected range. So I would consider that to be something to be considered.
Okay. Also, all of your properties are significantly older than the subject property. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And yet you are assigning same dollar per square foot without adjusting for the age at all?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I've applied $10 a square foot. And so when you look at the rental rates that are shown in there, it's there is a considerable, certainly as you look at numbers 2 to 10, there is a considerable upward adjustment to the rental rates there.
But when we look at number 1, for example, 1979 building at $10 per square foot, obviously that building is
yeah, and I don't have the particulars or the details of that because, as I said, that was an assessment and taxation department rent provided in a previous hearing. But certainly the balance of them we've adjusted significantly upwards.
So you would agree with me that newer buildings would rent for higher dollars per square foot than the older ones? Would you agree with me on that?
Generally speaking, but it depends if we're considering the pad leases or the land leases or comparable rents.
At this point, we are looking at net leases of the net lease per square foot.
On our page 7, right. But we've also shown subsequently, I think it's on page 9, 2 variant approaches. One, if we're considering land lease rates, the subject land lease calculates out at $634 a square foot building area.
Subject property vehicle service garage.
I'm sorry, what?
Is a subject property vehicle service garage?
It's defined as that. The structure is vehicle service related.
Correct. And the business assessment in question is vehicle service related, correct?
Well, if the principle is to impute rents from land leases, you wouldn't necessarily limit it to one type of property. That's why we've shown both approaches here.
I guess I don't think it's a question like, is the subject property a vehicle service related? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Subject property a vehicle service related? building.
Yes.
And the typical approach for business assessment is price per square foot. Would you agree with me on that? Of the
Not necessarily. If the approach, and so in the business assessment appeals, you need, in the legislation, there is a premise for equitable treatment. And if we are considering land leases for types of property, then you must also equally then, I think, consider them for others. Here, I've shown both approaches. I don't think necessarily that land leases are the way to go, which is why in our gas station appeals that we'll be talking about in a couple of minutes, we use an entirely different approach than the hypothetical or imputed rents derived by the department.
But how do we find comparables? Do we compare vehicle service garages to vehicle service garages, or do we compare just the size of the building to the size of the building, or size of the lot to the size of the lot?
Well, in this particular case, Ark, I've used both approaches. I've considered the land lease, which is what the city argues for gas stations, and I've considered market rents, which I've also considered in the gas stations from our end. So all I think is that whatever decision we make, we should apply it equally or uniformly, and that's all I'm suggesting here.
Again, like we're derailing also probably far away from the issue here, which is we are here to discuss 145 Warman on the basis of rent per square foot of the improvement of the.
I'm showing both.
Yeah, he has shown both.
Oh, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark?
Relative to the previous application, you've added as a comparable 140 Warman Road, and there was a second one, but I'm sorry I didn't take note of which one that is.
1500 Regent, that's an auto body shop.
In that previous application, I asked you if those 8 were all the ones that you had in your database, and you said yes. But
no, I believe that your question was whether or not that was based on information that we had within our files.
Uh-huh. And you got these other 2 in your files as well?
Actually, yes. And so as I went through them, certainly for this one, Warman was one that kicked up. The one on 1500 Regent isn't in the separate, how am I going to put this? It's not in our separate database of rental rates. It was in the cycle, a late edition, and it got missed inputting into our database. And so it was one that I dragged out for this one. It doesn't appear within our database of information for the 2020 appeals.
But you do have knowledge of these 2, and these are ones that I guess there's a little bit of a question whether we can make use of them in the previous application, but I would certainly hope that we don't see more added in the subsequent ones. Will we?
To be honest, I don't know. Much depends on the sequence in which I prepared the briefs. I don't know the answer to that offhand.
Okay, I'm fine with different ones being used, as long as I know that when I ask you, is this all of yours, and you say yes, that is actually correct. This one on Warman, it has an effective age of 1979, or is that when it was built?
So this is based on city information and what they present within their briefs at the Board of Revision, or based on the information that they presented at the Board of Revision, they show effective year built. Having driven by there, I've never been in it, but having driven by there, I don't have any reason to disbelieve that it was not built in 79.
I'm sorry, I didn't notice this with the previous one. So in all the subsequent ones too, you're going to be showing effective age as opposed to age built to your knowledge. You'll be taking effective age from the city.
I think that was also shown in our previous one as well.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't notice it, but okay. Yeah. And that's how the rest of these today will also.
Yeah, it is. Well, typically that's my practice.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Yes, I noticed the property we're looking at is 145 Warman Road, and the lease you've attached is 131 Warman Road.
Well, 145 Warman is the way the city has identified this business premise. When you look at the realty roll, it shows up as 131.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it for me. Thank you.
And I have no questions. I just have a comment to let you, the appellant and the applicant know that any properties not concluded by 12:30, if we go that long, will be adjourned. Everybody understand that?
Thank you, yes.
Thank you. And property number 3 is 650 Archbold. And Archie, you can proceed.
File number 195412, 650 Archibald, business assessment ID is 34899, owners Red River Cooperative Limited. Business assessment consists of 2 premises. Premise 29,326 with area 1,785 square feet, which is a gas station kiosk at base rate of $36.64 per square foot, with occupancy cost arrives at annual rental value of $69,780. And premise number 2, 29,327 with 1,851 square feet, base area of 995, which is car wash for the gas station, with occupancy cost has annual rental value of $22,320,000. Total annual rental value, combining both premises, $92,100. Subject property is owner occupied. Page 2 provides aerial view on the street view of the subject property. Page 3 provides comparables of the gas stations. So the gas stations that City of Winnipeg uses. And the last page, number 4, provides a Board of Revision order for the realty of the subject property, the realty appeal of the subject property. And there the decision is based on the net operating income presented by the Assessment and Taxation Department with capitalization rate of 6.25. So Board of Revision at the realty level, for the Board of Revision at the realty assessment of the subject property, use City of Winnipeg as net operating income and the change capitalization. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brad?
I do have some questions now. As we were working our way through these, I took a little bit of time on the first one because it was the first vehicle service related facility. And I'm going to take a little bit of time on this one as well because it's the first of the gas stations we're dealing with today. So ARCA, for business assessment purposes, pumps, tanks, and canopies are not assessed, correct?
For business assessment purposes, we are only using square footage areas.
So let me ask you the question again. Pumps, tanks, and canopies are not accessible, correct, for business assessment purposes, even though there is an adjustment on the realty end, correct?
Well, they are on the realty and they are not part of the net operating income. Pumps, tanks, canopies are on the realty and are added as additional building values.
Right. So similarly, propane filling stations where they are present are not accessible, correct? For business assessment purposes.
So the City of Winnipeg for business assessment purposes uses square footage of improvement.
So I'm trying to, for the board's clarification, help them understand the city's approach. So let me ask you the question again. For business assessment purposes, are propane filling stations assessed?
Propane?
Yes. You go, you take your barbecue 20-pound tank and you get it filled with propane. You take it back to your house.
So what? So you said propane filling station, right? It just wasn't coming out too clear. So you said propane.
Okay, yes, propane filling stations.
If it's like, and again, I can only be clear as I can be, and we are using only square footage of the improvement. So where is the propane filling station located?
You do or do not know?
If it's located inside the building or if it's located outside?
No. Do you or do you not know if they are assessed for business assessment purposes?
I stated once and I'll say it again. For business assessment purposes, we're using square footage of the improvement.
Okay. And similarly with realty assessments, propane filling stations are not assessed, correct?
Propane filling station is a part, you are referring to as a part of the improved square footage of the building.
Propane filling stations are not within the building, are they? They're outside? For safety reasons, they have to be outside, correct?
If it is outside of the, again, there's, and Brad, why am I answering the way I am? Because for like, there's a regular, typical way of having things, but there's also sometimes situations when may be inside. So that's why I answered the way I asked.
Let me suggest to you that propane filling stations can never be inside the convenience store at a gas station.
Okay, if it's not inside of the building, then it's not inside.
Similarly, the sign pylons, and gas stations have sign pylons, and certainly this property does. Do you know if those are assessed for business assessment purposes?
Again, for business assessment purposes, we are only using square footage of the improvements.
So I'll take that as they are not assessed, correct?
I answered that for business assessment purposes, we're only using square footage of the improvements.
Okay. So for realty assessment purposes, we know that the city applies separately a value for pump tanks and canopies, right?
For realty assessment purposes, pumps, tanks, and canopies are added as a separate.
Okay. But for realty assessment purposes, propane filling stations and the sign pylons are not assessed. Would you agree?
Yeah, to my knowledge,
Okay.
only pumps, tanks, and canopies are assessed for realty.
Okay. And those physically occupy space for realty purposes, either the subject property or for business purposes within the subject premise. They occupy space on the site, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's take a look at your comparables on page 3. And you show here 14 different rental comparables, the first 12 of which you suggest are rents for gas stations, correct?
Correct.
Okay, now, as we take a look at the VCW column on the very right-hand side of your page 3, VCW means vehicle car wash, right?
Correct.
Now, you show 3 of them as having exactly the same rent.
Correct.
Is that the rent that is charged by the land? Those are all arm's length tenant and landlord relationships, correct?
So those are pad side leases that are signed between the occupier and the property owner.
So they are arm's length leases, correct?
Correct.
So do the lease rates, or are the lease rates reported on the questionnaire for the vehicle car wash component as $10.50 per square foot?
It's calculated in a way that it works out to be those values.
Those values, and so that doesn't reflect the actual rent on the buildings on the property, correct?
No, those are pad side rents. Like
Okay.
value.
So similarly, the SKP rents just to the left of the VCW column, those are calculated on the basis, they're not real rents of buildings, right? They're land leases.
They are land leases, right?
Just like the land lease on Warman Road, right?
Oh. I did not examine the lease on Warman Road. I cannot speak to it.
Okay, well, certainly a copy of it or excerpts of it were included within our evidence. So if we take a look here at the column directly to the right of the blued out section, it shows here annual pad side rent. And so that's the amount that's paid annually for the rental of the land, correct?
Correct.
And isn't it true that those rates are I'm sorry?
So those are, as I said, I just wanted to add more. Like,
Okay.
so you asked me about if this was paid for the land. Yes, those are rents that is paid by the tenant for the land. So cost of any improvement would be on top of it.
Okay. So, and this isn't by any stretch of the imagination a comprehensive list of land leases within the city of Winnipeg, is it?
So those are the comparables the city of Winnipeg uses for the specific for the calculation.
I understand that, and you didn't prepare this list, did you?
I did not.
No. And so did you look for other land lease comparables?
I did not look for any other.
Okay. And so certainly within the city of Winnipeg, there are more than 12 land lease comparables for gas stations, right?
I cannot answer the question.
You don't know?
Without
Are there, let's come at this another way. So gas stations are either owner occupied or they sit on land leases, correct?
to my knowledge, yes.
And in fact, when you look at them, there are no rents attributable to just the gas station anywhere in the city, are there?
To my knowledge, there isn't one.
Okay. So all of these leases, numbers 1 to 12, will all have pumps, tanks, and canopies present on their site, correct?
No, all of those leases are pad side leases for a bare lot.
I understand that, but from that, you are or you're presenting as evidence a calculation of an imputed rent, correct?
From that, we're looking at what the side of the improvement is and arrive at price per square foot.
Right. But you're arriving at a rent per square foot of building area, but you don't show anywhere on here the size of the land that's actually being rented, right?
The land that's being rented?
The land area for which the rent is being paid.
No, it's not on this side.
Not on this side. And so for each numbers 1 through 12, for each of those rents, there will be pumps, tanks, and canopies present on the site, correct?
Cost of pump. I'll just go forward. Yes, because those are gas stations, there is pumps and canopies and tanks. Yes,
Of course. So for business assessment purposes, those are not assessable, but you haven't made any adjustment to reflect the presence of those in your imputed rents, correct?
They're not being considered for the realty on the.
If they are physically present on the site and there's an imputed rent being calculated, you haven't made an adjustment to reflect the presence of those improvements on the site. Isn't that correct?
No, it's not correct.
Okay, so where is the adjustment for the pumps, tanks, and canopies?
Well, I think they're not assessed for business purposes.
Right, and so what I'm looking at here is an imputed rent based on the building area, but there is no adjustment for the pumps, tanks, and canopies, which are necessarily present in each instance.
But they're not assessed.
For business assessment purposes, they are for realty assessment purposes. So if we are considering, sorry, go ahead.
We're here today to discuss business assessment.
Yes. And so
answer the question that they're not assessed for business assessment.
Right.
That's the story.
And I agree with all of that, but the assessor is showing here on his page 3 imputed rents, land leases, to which they impute, not a real rent, but impute a rent, but they haven't adjusted that rent for pumps, tanks, and canopies, which are present in each of these leases.
We don't know what's present in these leases because nobody has submitted a copy of the lease.
By definition, an SKP will have pumps, tanks, and canopies, or it's not an SKP.
He's answered that, yes.
Okay. So that I'm clear, and so that I'm sure I heard what Arka said, there is no adjustment for the presence of pumps, tanks, and canopies on each of these sites, correct? In your imputed rents.
In the, again, Brad, have you ever looked at the realty income assessment workup for gas station? That's what
I'm the one that's asking questions.
Okay, then I'll answer your question in this form. When somebody looks at the income workup, pumps, tanks, and canopies are added as an additional building. They're not part of income calculation.
But for business assessment purposes,
there is no need to adjust it. I think
right. But you are suggesting to the board here that your imputed rents don't include pumps, tanks, and canopy, as there's no adjustment for that.
There is no need to adjust for pumps, tanks, and canopies,
even though they're present in each instance 1 to 12.
Can we have one person talk at a time, because I'm having.
I'm sorry, because I apologize. I'm not trying to interrupt, but I can't necessarily hear that he's talking. So I'll try and have a little pause in between.
Thank you.
So for pumps, tanks, and canopies, there is no need to adjust it because they're not part of income calculations. The cost for pumps, tanks, and canopies are added as an additional cost. For income calculation, price per square foot is used. And for business assessment, same price per square foot is used. I hope I answered your question.
Okay, as we look at your numbers 13 and 14, those are both vehicle car washes, correct?
Yes, they are.
And the city has verified that these are arm's length leases?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Okay, so, and you've already suggested to the board that a newer property would rent for more than an older property, correct?
Correct.
So can you explain how the 1967 building rents for almost twice as much as the 1988 building car wash?
Okay, well, we'll have to look at the physical condition of the comparables. Like we have actual year build of 1988 and 1967. I do not have any further information to it, so I cannot answer anymore.
Okay. And so as we look at, again at your so let me back up. So your numbers 13 and 14, this is just a cut and paste from other documents. It's not information that you've prepared, nor have you reviewed this information, correct?
This is the information that has been prepared by the assessors,
right?
For the purposes of representing car washes and gas stations,
right?
For the purpose of border, for the border division purposes.
And isn't it true that you have not reviewed these materials?
I think he answered that about 10 minutes ago.
I apologize if I've repeated the question, but I don't recall asking it. For this property, for this type of property, you'll see the same rental comparables on every gas station. And so that's why I'm taking a little time on the first one to establish exactly what's going on here.
Okay.
So with the information presented, it has been reviewed. Yes, so the information that was presented here has been reviewed to a degree. Like I did not inspect all of the properties, if that's what you're implying. No, I did not.
Okay. Do you know the basis for which gas companies establish an appropriate rental rate for a particular location?
Is this a business-related question?
Well, we're talking about land leases here. Do you know the basis that companies determine the rental rate that they're prepared to pay for those lands in any particular location?
Is this a relevant question for the business assessment of the subject property? How relevant is this question?
Well, it's a question about your annual pad site rents.
But again, there's no lease documentation before the board to even make any sense.
Okay. So as we turn back to your comparables number, and I'm almost done. As we turn back to your comparables number 1 to 12, if there was a change or a physical change in any of these properties, make the building area bigger, for example, wouldn't that affect your per square foot rate if the land rate didn't change?
Yes, it would affect the price per square foot.
Okay. Now, 1070 Henderson, for example, do you know that that SKP was demolished and a much larger building was placed on that site?
Well, the information I have that the pad site, it was leased since January 1995 as a pad site for the gas station.
It was leased. I'm sorry, leased when?
The lease started in January of 1995.
Okay, so similarly, as we go through these leases, you alluded to older leases not being valid or reflecting market rent. So as we go through your leases here, almost all of them would fall outside of what I would determine to be, or what I would view to be current, right?
You're correct. Information we have for for pad site leases and especially gas station is very limited, so we are using what is available out there.
Yeah. And just a couple of more questions. Your comparable number 2 at 1484 Inkster, that's a standalone kiosk, right? Or it's a small one. It was built in 1993, and I believe it's been the same occupant all the way along. Is it likely that the lease start date was 2017, or is that likely a step up?
So 1484 Inkster, we have, based on the information we have, the lease started on February 1st, 2017.
Based on the information you have on file?
Yeah, based on the information provided here.
Okay. Now, similarly, with all the rest of them, you're showing lease start dates considerably newer than the improvements on the property. Is it likely that all of those would be step-ups as well?
Again, information we have is the pad site lease, and we do not have the specifics of the leases. The information the City of Winnipeg gets regarding any leases, what is provided by the mailer.
And would it be fair to say that neither you nor anyone from the department, including whoever it was that prepared the information on page 3, has checked into those details?
I cannot speak to other people.
Have you checked?
I'm just using this information. I checked on. I was able to check some of them, but I didn't obviously reviewed every single one of them, or I did not inspect every single one of them.
Okay, which ones did you check?
I checked the properties on NES, 1626 NES, for example.
And that makes sense, right? Because that's a 2009 year built and a 2008 lease. Is that the only one you checked?
To the yes, from what comes to my mind right now, yes, it's all.
Okay. And those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Well, I have had, I think, much the same questioning going on in my mind as Mr. Borgford. Borgstrom.
Thank you.
Sorry, I told myself 3 minutes ago to say Borgstrom, not Borgford, because I worked with the Borgford for so many years, and I screwed up anyway. We do not, for business assessment purposes, attribute value to the canopies, the structures, etc., for the tanks, the pumps. We are just, if I take a look at your picture on A2, we are just applying business assessment to 2 buildings, essentially, the convenience store and the car wash. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. The comparables are leases that are the full area of properties that have, in most cases, a convenience store, pumps, canopy, tanks, car wash in some cases. Those comparables, you're providing leases that are attributable to the whole of the land area. I'm seeing an inconsistency here in that if you did not have the pumps and the canopies, if you weren't pumping gas, you probably wouldn't have a land area leased that would be this big. Or in other words, wouldn't it be more comparable to just take those 2 buildings, the convenience store and the car wash, attribute a certain amount of land to them, but certainly not the land that is attributable to the area where gas is being pumped, and find comparable properties that have leases of that size. And if you did that, you would be likely reducing the area of land that you're looking for. And you'd probably wind up with leases that have a higher value per square foot because you're looking at smaller properties, just using the principle that the bigger the area, likely the per square foot value goes down. So I'm not, I guess, understanding how I can attribute a lease rent when it is for oranges when we're only looking at apples. Now, well, I made that clear to you, like I don't.
I guess I'll try to answer.
Is why is it? Maybe my basic question is, if we cannot attribute business assessment to the canopies, the pumps, the tanks, and presumably that land area, why are we looking at comparables that are for land areas and buildings that are much larger?
Well, I guess to answer the question, so gas stations for the most part they are either owner occupied or they have bad site lease. So what we have when it comes time to, like for example, subject property is an owner occupied gas station. So 650 Archibald is an owner occupied. They own land, they own all the improvements. Now, how do you have trying to compare apples to apples again? There are leases, bad site leases of other gas stations. So what we have here on
That's like meaning that you would have various leases that are smaller.
Oh, basically what we have, if you look at on my page 3, for example, that provides bad site leases for gas stations. So on the column right next to, on the right of the tenant, you see annual bad site rent, and it starts 105,000, 4,286. So that's what those operators, gas station operators, pay to the landowner to use the site. What they build on that site is extra cost of the operator. So they pay, for example, in cases now on 690 Sterling Line, comparable number 1, they pay for the site, they pay $105,000.
And sorry to interrupt, but just so I understand, that 105 rent includes pad site area that is attributable to the gas pumps, the structure, the canopy, and the tanks.
So that is the full area. What's there?
Yeah.
So the cost of improvements, cost of pumps, tanks, and canopies are all extra. For the realty, the way it works on the realty side, it's pumps, tanks, and canopies are being looked at as a cost. They're added as extra building value.
Yeah.
So what we are left with is for income approach calculation is the square footage of the improvement, the kiosk, and square footage of the car wash present. And the pad site is basically broken down into the car wash area and the kiosk area. And hence the price per square foot for car wash and price per square foot of kiosk is developed. That's how City of Winnipeg looks at it. That's how they built a model to value all of those gas stations. I do understand that there's many ways to do it, and you suggested to look at it a bit differently. I can only speak at what the City of Winnipeg is doing right now. That's what they're doing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
I just have one question. You have 2 independent car washes on 13 and 14.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it seems to me there's other car washes in the city that don't have the convenience store. In other words, they just have the car wash.
Yes.
There's one off Osborne. There's 3 of the Chamois throughout the city.
Mm-hmm.
How are they done? How are they assessed for business assessment purposes?
Price per square foot of a car wash, so it would be somewhere around $10 or $7, but depending on the condition and the size.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question. Okay, Brad.
Thank you. And so I have sent over to Ellen some rebuttal evidence with respect to all of the car convenience stores and car washes, the gas stations, on the docket today, and I don't know if she's sent it on to you yet.
It's in the record. No, apparently we have it.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to not go over every page in this document. I did want you to have a look at one particular thing. The danger, and this will illustrate the point, the danger of using land leases is where the building area changes. And you'll recall the assessor's rent for 1070, the comparison at 1070 Henderson. On his page 3, he shows that rent as $137.06 per square foot of building area. This this gas station is right at the corner of McLeod and Henderson on the southwest corner of the intersection. Was actually scraped and completely rebuilt, and it is now 1,600 and I believe 85 square feet in size. They also increased the number of pumps on the site, and we show that within our rebuttal evidence, starting at page 7. You'll see, and I'm just going to go over this quickly, that was from a 2018 appeal, pre-demo. It was already demolished, and you can see there that the assessor requested that it be, the assessment be confirmed pending a supplemental being issued. And you'll see on page 8, the city shows it as 450 square feet, circa 2015. These are just from Google Streets, and you go back in the dates. In 2018, it's a much larger store, and you can see there where they've set it back a little bit. They've increased the number of pumps, and they have a propane filling station on this site. And as we go down to page 10, you'll see a confirmation of the physical building area, also wood frame, but 1,685 square feet. So we go through this, and that's also shown again on page 11 and 12. The rent didn't change a penny. And so we have exactly the same rent, but now we have a different building area. And so we now have a different rental rate per square foot than the city is showing. That's the danger of using land leases to calculate an imputed rent. If we go back to page 6, page 4, bottom right-hand corner, you'll see where I've actually made some handwritten notations. This has all been presented before this board previously. We've gone through this before. It was built actually 2017, and I've looked up the email. I've confirmed with Red River Co-op. His reply to me was, so I sent him this email. He replied on January 18th of 2018. So pre-reference date, and it opened for business yesterday afternoon. So it opened for business the afternoon of July 17th, prior to the reference date. And you'll see there that the new calculation of the convenience store, the gas kiosk, $43.83 per square foot. Now, if you put a bigger building on there, the rate goes down. If you put a small building on there, for example, you see there that the department has used a Domo kiosk. They're comparable number 4. And I'm looking at our rebuttal here. They show that for 112 square feet at $160.71 a square foot. If you take a look at this, logically, the pumps, tanks, and canopies are not assessed. And so what you're left with is the bricks and mortar of the car wash and the bricks and mortar of a retail store. You walk in, it's like walking into a Mac store or a 7-Eleven, you buy lottery tickets, confections. And so that's partly what we've considered. We've also taken a look, depending on the age of the property, at a number of just retail rental comparables. It is not solely gas stations that should properly be considered. There are no rentals of gas station buildings. And you can see here in this rebuttal the danger of relying on the land leases. So if we have any questions on the rebuttal before I move on to our brief, I'm happy to take them. Okay.
Actually, my question is, when we look at the pad site leases, this is actual, this is bare minimum what the company pays for to operate on that premise, right? Because they also have to invest into buildings and improvements. Do you agree with me?
Which is not related to rent.
However, that is the rent they pay for the site.
For the site, and that's why we suggest, and and as we go through ours, I'll show you that we've included some pad leases or land leases. It turns out to be much lower rents than the 12 presented or selected rental rates that are being used by the city here. Ultimately, we reject that approach, but we do show them, demonstrating that if you look at more than just these 12, and I don't know on the basis that they were selected, but if we look at more than just these 12, you come up with a rental rate much lower than the city has suggested, if we're going to use land leases and imputed rents.
No, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
No.
Giselle?
No, thank you.
And I have no questions.
Okay. So our approach, and I've already sort of alluded to it, if we do not consider pumps, tanks, and canopies, the propane filling station, the sign pylon for business assessment purposes, what you're left with is a convenience store or a retail type of building and a car wash. So if we turn to page 6, we show there a number of rental comparables. The ages range from 1999 all the way up to almost brand new. And you'll see there that the rents don't come close to the $36.34 per square foot that the city has assigned to the convenience store in this particular location. These are all, none of these are gas stations. They are all retail rents. That's what we've selected. We turn over to the following page on page 7, and here you will see the land leases that I'm referring to on Main, McPhillips, Henderson, on Regent Avenue, and on Lakewood Boulevard. And again, if we consider the assessor's rents, age of the buildings doesn't seem to play a factor in their calculations. So if we were to consider this, you will see that the rental rates range from a low of $11.65 per square foot to a high of $24.52 per square foot. That's based on the imputed rents. So if we want to take a look at Landrand Comparables, we can certainly consider these as well as the assessor's 12. I've got these shown here. My approach and my view is that the proper approach is to apply retail rents. The one detail I wanted to add here for numbers 4 and 5, that's actually a 7-Eleven on Regent Avenue. There is a separate lease to Petrocan. When you add the two together, for business assessment purposes, the rent for the pumps, tanks, and canopy space wouldn't be assessed, and I don't believe that they are assessed in that location. So the rent works out to $11.65 per square foot. That's a gross lease with no recoveries shown on the rent roll. I can tell you that I have personally looked at the rent roll. Similarly with numbers 6 and 7, that's a Shell gas station with a car wash. You'll see there the building areas. The total overall rent, $23.10 per square foot. So again, I think that the proper way is to look at retail rents, and that's what we've done based on that. I think $28 a square foot for the retail store, the convenience store, And for the purposes of this report, the $9.95 that the city has applied to the car wash, we are applying. And so we take a look at the calculations on page 8. And based on all of that, we're looking for a reduction to $76,680. I show at the rear pictures of the comparables that we've used here. Page 10, you'll see that that's an Esso station. And again, the Max Convenience Store, kind of like walking into a Red River Co-op, right? You buy lottery tickets, convection, soft drinks, exactly the same sort of operation. And you'll see there that that is part of a multi-tenanted strip. Comparable number 2, that's a Petrochem. Very similar, you'll see there the convenience store, the car wash separately, the pumps, tanks, and canopies. Numbers 4 and 5 is, number 3 is a Domo kiosk. 4 and 5 is again another Petrochem, but that's the one I was talking about with the 7-Eleven. Again, part of a multi-tenanted property with a gross lease on the convenience store. And comparables number 5 and 6 is the Shell station. You'll see the car wash and the convenience store that's on Lakewood Boulevard. So based on all of that, if we're going to use land leases, then certainly the calculations that we've shown should be applied. Our preferred approach is to actually apply the retail rents that we've suggested. And so we're looking for a reduction to $76,680. And that is the information quickly that I wanted to present here.
Thank you. Arca, questions?
Brad, would you agree with me that it's best to compare gas stations to gas stations and retail outlets to retail outlets? Would you agree with me on that?
If you could find a rental rate that actually applied to the buildings with the removal of consideration of pumps, tanks, and canopies, probably, but there aren't any rentals. They're either owner occupied or they're land leases. There are no rentals of the buildings themselves.
So I guess yeah. So like my only problem is when you look at trying to. It's not an accurate science either when you're trying to compare the retail outlet that sells other items, but not a gas station per se, with a gas station, because gas station derives like convenience store is just a part of the gas station overall, and so it's not the best way to compare. Would you agree with that?
And I would disagree with you. I'm going to turn you back, and maybe you haven't had a chance to look at it. I'm going to refer to, I have actually personally watched the hearing. Mr. Pohl, your colleague, Mr. Pohl, in the hearing of a car dealership said it didn't matter. Retail is retail. You buy something, you sell something. Compared it to grocery stores, car dealership rent, comparing it to grocery stores. So here, if you remove consideration of the pumps, tanks, and canopies, you're not limited solely to a gas station. And as you look through the city, when a gas station goes vacant, it's either converted to another use or it's scraped. And so there are many other uses to which it could be put and rented, as is the case in the city, former gas stations. But in this case, we're looking at the bricks and mortars of a retail store, in addition to the car wash in this case.
Well, I guess I'm not going to go into this. Probably would you agree that when the car dealerships are in question, since it was brought up, they do try to blend car services and the retails together for the dealership, so which is not the true case. Here, we're just trying to compare, trying to remove certain aspects of the gas station, which is not probably the accurate way to approach it.
Well, there wasn't really a question here, but let me just address your commentary. So for business assessment purposes, we are to be assessing the premise area. That's not the land. City does not assess excess lands for business assessment purposes. They also don't assess, parking lots are different, but they do not assess the lands themselves. And so when we're trying to impute rents from land leases, I suggest that it's completely the wrong approach.
But there is no way to adjust one for another, right? Didn't.
Well, and that's why we're using, so we've shown both, right? We've shown the land leases for some gas stations in the city. And we also show retail rents, which when you remove pumps, tanks, and canopies from consideration is what you're left with, is basically a retail store.
And another thing is your comparable 4 and 5, it just says Regent Avenue, so could you tell me do you know exactly the address of that site?
I believe that's at 801.
801?
Yeah.
And so there you have two particular things. One has leasable area 0, another has leasable area of 2,682.
So the leasable area of 0 is the Petro can lease for the pumps, tanks, and canopies that are there. The actual transactions occur inside the 7-Eleven store, but the 7-Eleven doesn't pay the lease rate on the pumps, tanks, and canopies. And pumps, tanks, and canopies for business assessment purposes are not accessible.
But you are using it as your comparable, right?
Yes, yes.
So even though they're not accessible?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Oh, yeah, like they're not accessible, but I guess Appellant is using it as their comparable. That's all my question. So are you using it as your comparable even though it's not accessible?
It's present. I'm showing it that it is it's a convenience store and a gas station operation, just like the Esso on McPhillips. But it's and so the rental rate that I showed, it's a gross rent. So the rental for both of them. And so what I'm showing is the calculations of what would be attributable for those. You can't assess for business assessment purposes the pumps, tanks, and canopies. So I'm showing the rent on what's accessible there.
Those are all my questions, please.
Thank you.
Your comparables on page 6 are all retail outlets instead. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the subject has a retail building and a car wash. Why did you not provide comparables that are freestanding car washes?
We are using the same rate, $9.95, as the city has applied.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Gisela?
I have no questions, but I apologize for being on my cell phone. I had to extend my parking.
I didn't even notice.
And I have no questions. So that concludes property number 3. And we're going to take a 10-minute break. Returning at 5 after 11.
Thank you. I do anticipate the balance of the gas stations will go much faster.
Okay. We'll see what happens. We'll reconvene the meeting. Brad, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Great. The next property is 190 St. Anne's Road. And Arthur, you can proceed.
File number 19544, 190 St. Anne's Road, Business Assessment ID 29063, owners Red River Cooperative Limited. Again, it's a gas station consisting of a car wash and a kiosk. The kiosk area is 1,766 square feet at $35.36 per square foot. With occupancy cost, total annual rental value is $66,780,000. Car wash is 958 square feet with $10.41 base ARV. With occupancy cost, annual rental value $12,000. Total annual rental value for both premises $78,780. Okay, page 2 and 3 provides picture of the subject property, aerial view and the street view. And page 4 provides comparables for the car wash, gas stations and car washers in the city of Winnipeg uses. They are the same as in previous. And page 5 provides board of revision order for the realty appeal of the subject property. The decision is based on the operating income presented by the assessment education department and the change capitalization rate. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brad?
I'm going to make the assumption that the questions asked and answered on the previous gas station would apply.
That's correct.
Okay, so I just have a couple of quick questions. Do you know the size of the site for this property?
Let's see if I have the information with me. Typically, BA paperwork do not have it, so. No, I don't have information on the lot sites with me.
Okay, so if I suggested to you that it was 16,252 square feet, previous one was something north of 49,000 square feet. The size of the site, or would it be true to say that the size of the site doesn't enter into consideration or impact the rental rate assigned to the premise?
Well, the rental rate assigned is based on the per square footage of the improvement.
Right, but you're imputing a rent from your rental comparables. Does the size of the site enter into the calculation for the subject premise?
But to my knowledge, it doesn't.
Does not. Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Thank you. Mark?
So the previous one was a much larger site. This is a small site by comparison. The same rent, 3536 for the one premise and 1041. Or is that the same as the previous?
That's slightly different. The previous was 3664 or 985.
Okay. Close, just a little different. My only question.
Thank you. Gisela?
Yes, I'm wondering if an appeal has been filed to the municipal board.
Okay, let me see. Yes, it has. By
The appellant. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. I see there's a board of revision decision on the realty,
Yes.
and it's based on NOI of ATD.
Yes.
What was that base rent?
Same as presented here, 3536 for the premise 87,742 and 1041 for the premise 29,313.
Okay, thank you. And Brad, you can proceed.
Okay, I want to say, with all due respect, that I am concerned with the questions about the realty decision. I was admonished by a chair very on in the business assessment appeal cycle that you folks didn't want to be a stepping stone, that you wanted the evidence on which to base your decision appropriately, that they are two separate appeals, one realty, one business, two separate rules. And so we have made efforts to present the board, and actually this information is different than was presented, somewhat different than was presented at the board of revision on the realty. My expectation or my assumption based on that admonishment was that the board would be making their decisions without consideration of the realty appeals. And in fact, Like just recently on a property at 930 St. Mary's Road, the board confirmed the assessment where on the business side, whereas they reduced the assessment on the realty side based on income. So I just wanted to express my concern on that. I don't need a response, but it's a concern having heard those questions.
Well, I think I'll just make a comment. Both parties throughout this process in business assessment appeals, not just you guys, but other assessors and other accountants have brought forth realty issues. So the question is, why bring it forward?
Well, where you'll find, and I can't speak to other people in my office, and certainly not for other people in the industry, but when I'm presenting and I include a board order, it's because the board specified a rental rate that they decided on. Notwithstanding that order, I continue to supply rent comparables on all of those properties. I don't rely solely or at all on the board orders. And so my approach is to continue to, I took the admonishment seriously, and so I continue to present information to the board on which I would hope that they reach the same conclusions I did.
Well, you know what, each panel and each board will put the weight on all of the evidence and assign an appropriate priority.
Yep. So our approach here was very similar to the previous one. We've selected different rental comparables, and we show those on page 6. Again, the department here has assigned a rent of $35.36 per square foot to the 1,766 square foot retail convenience store. I did just want to have you take a look at the oblique on our page 4, and it'll give you a little bit of perspective with the limitations of this site. You can see from the information in our brief that the convenience store and the gas station were built, I believe it's 1997. Subsequently, they added the car wash. They managed to squeeze it in at the back, and you'll see there at the rear of the building on page 4 there, the entrance is wide open. The exit's a little bit tricky with the fence. There's a sharp corner. It's not the same as other locations, and certainly not the same as we just looked at on Archibald, where it was actually different and much easier access on a much larger site. Certainly in this particular location, that's going to be a consideration in what you're determining to be an appropriate rental rate to assign to these structures. So having said all of that, we looked at rental comparables, Marion, Dakota, St. Mary's Road. This one's on St. Anne's. They're all in the St. Patel area. On page 6, the one that I've added here, because I hadn't seen it before, and actually went to an appeal hearing, is at 66 Mandalay Drive. That's the address that the department shows for that property. It's part of a multi-tenanted property. There's quite a few tenants on that property. That is a standalone Tempo car wash and convenience store. The convenience store portion is very small, but that's the rent they pay. And the reported rent is not for a land lease. That's the reported rent for the land and building, $564 per square foot. That property has been appealed or was heard for the 2020 assessment cycle. So that comes out of our records. So car wash and convenience store, both $564 per square foot for a structure built in 2009. So we took a look similarly on page 7. Those are exactly the same land lease comparables that we used previously. Again, my view is that the appropriate approach is to look at the retail rates. Here, a 1997 convenience store. And as we go through this today, you'll see that I am staging based on age, the retail convenience store rental rates. Here, because it was built in 1997, I've applied $26 a square foot. Again, that's considerably higher than the average or median we show on page 6. And it's actually higher than any of those rents we show on that page. In this case, I think that the $12.53 per square foot for the car wash should be adjusted downward. I have not included a car wash comparable other than the combined one on the previous page, number 26. But certainly in comparison with the previous one and other ones that we're going to hear today, suggest something lower than $12.53 a square foot, particularly given the land size. And so I've applied $9 a square foot. Go through the calculations on page 8, and we're looking for a reduction to $60,900. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions?
So yes, my question is on page 6, your comparable market rents. Those are gas stations or what type of?
Sorry, and so as I said here and in the previous one, our approach is different than the city. I can tell you that on page 6, number 26, that's a Tempo gas station with a car wash. That's not a land lease, and the overall rate on that one for a 2009 building is $5.64 per square foot. That property was heard for the realty appeal. That's the rent that was used in the realty appeal. And I'm not referring to what was done by the board there, but certainly that's the rental rate off of the rent roll.
That's I guess I would have a question that $5 square foot rent on comparable number 26. It certainly doesn't fit with the rest of it.
Well, so bear with me for 1 second. Whoops, sorry. So let me share this with you. So this is an excerpt. It's a page from the. I'll blow it up again in a minute, but this is a page from the City of Winnipeg brief. You'll see there that this was heard in January of 2020. So this year, this is the city information, and I'll blow it up for you in a minute. But here you will see the city has applied for the Mandalay Tempo. They've calculated $4.85 a square foot based on the tenant rent roll. I think that that's incorrect. I think they have the wrong area shown there. I calculated it at the basis. So the city is certainly well aware of that information, just from that. So I hope that helps answer your question about that rent.
Is that a land rate or is it
So, okay, so let me then pull up another one. Hang on. Sorry, I got to blow this up a little bit here first. So let me do this. Oops. So again, from the City of Winnipeg brief, you'll see here, this is not the land area. This is the building area that they've attributed, 5,064 square feet. And within that is and you can see there the rent that they've attributed to it at $5.51 a square foot.
You can see anything.
No, we
Oh, did I not? Oh, sorry, my bad. There we go. How's that? So this is the same property. Let me just pull you up to the top. This is the same property on Mandalay Drive, and you'll see as the separate income stream, 5,064 square feet. Just go up here. This is the vehicle car wash. Inside there is the Tempo kiosk, or the cash register, if you will. And 5,064 square feet, which is the area that we've applied. So it's not for a land lease. That's the actual rent in place or the building area that the city has applied there.
Oh, but that's not a comparable, right? That's
It is. That's the. So I showed you the previous rent, right? The the city shows. Let me find it again. Small ones, there. Or let me do this instead. Maybe a little bit faster. So here we have the rent roll for this property, 2017 income and expense questionnaire. This was what was sent to the city. And I don't know if you can read it, but this is that's the property there. They're charging a rent. $26.25 per month. So we ratchet it up. And so that's the rental rate that we've applied based on the income and expense questionnaire that was sent to the city and based on the information that was shown in the city's brief for the 2020 appeal on this property. And you can see from this that it's not a small property. There are a number of tenants in here. This is one page. Let me just scroll up here. So they have a number of properties. Little laggy, hang on. So that's one page. And then if we go down a page, you can see the balance. So it's a multiple tenant property. It's a standalone building. And that's the rate that we calculate as a rental rate on that building area based on the rent roll.
Brad, it's not like.
You have to speak into the mic.
Oh, yeah. So, Brad, I don't see it very clearly. I just want to confirm it from you because you probably have a better sight. It's very common that in a multi-tenanted building, some properties would be net lease per square foot of the improvement, whereas others would be land lease. So I just want to hear it from you. Is it a land lease or is it not?
I believe this to be a lease of the building based on our information. And I stand to be corrected. I think I looked at the file and the Board of Revision brief. I think it's a building lease. I don't believe it's a land lease, and it certainly doesn't suggest that. Let's come at this another way. So based on the rent roll, you'll see, so this is the property. Let me blow it up a little bit. So this is the premise here. They show that as the area, which differs from the city's calculation, but that's what he shows. But here you also show a share of property tax, operating costs, and your administration costs. So typically on a land lease, the tenant would be responsible. If it's a standalone land lease, they would be responsible for their own costs. But here we have, because it's a multi-tenanted property, they're sharing, and you can see there that there are recoveries on each of those line items. So I don't think it's a land lease.
Well, I guess, but the size of the improvement is much smaller than the 6,500 square feet.
Well, the city's calculation is at 5,064 square feet, which is a little odd. But let me show you this now. So the city's records for the building sizes on this property, they show 3 sections. 2 of them are 15,000 square feet in size, and one of them, the building that was built in 2009, that's the subject property. The city shows this area as 5,589 square feet. So they use a different area. Oops, they use a different area. Sorry, I got to share that. So here you'll see 2 sections in 1983, and then the 5,589 square foot section in 2009. That's the car wash and the Tempo gas kiosk.
And I really think we should move on. This property is not even subject of the appeal.
No, but it's a rental comparable, and I understand the assessor has some questions.
There appears to be a problem with the area.
Not according, like, so I've looked at this, I've looked at the rent roll, and I've looked at the city's information on it. And it might well be that they've combined some of the kiosk, separated out from the car wash, but the city's own records that I just showed you showed that structure as 5,988 square feet. So let me just have a quick look again. Yeah, that's not going to show it. I was looking to see if we had some pictures of it, and we don't have a clear picture of it. But I have confidence it's the area that we used in our board of revision brief, and I have confidence that that's the correct rate for the realty brief for 2020.
Okay, well, let's move on. Any other questions, Eric?
I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. Marcus? Gisela?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions.
Just really quickly, Arca, if you look at the city brief from the realty appeal on the city's page 9, you'll see a standalone building there. That'll be the Tempo. Okay. If you want to make a note of that.
The subject property.
The rental comparable at 66 Mandalay. The city's 2020 realty brief shows a site with the different buildings, a site plan. You can see the standalone building there.
Oh, I can see I have limited access to things, so I don't
Okay. And so just make a note and maybe you can check at the office to satisfy yourself.
But the difference in area, it's I guess to me that it's a land lease anyways.
It is not a land lease.
Okay, the next property is 260 Goulet Street. And RP, you can proceed.
Okay. File number 195508, 260 Goulet Street, business assessment ID 43658, business name Safeway Gas Bar, owners Sobeys Atlantic Fuel Company. Premise area 416 square feet at $204.26 per square foot. With occupancy cost, total annual rental value 85,980 square feet. The following pages, page 2 and 3, provide the pictures of the subject property, aerial view, street view. Page 4, same comparables, city users for gas stations and car washes. Page 5 is a realty board of revision order. The decision is based on adjusted net operating income with capitalization rate of 6.75. My calculated net operating income came up to be $150 per square. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brad?
Thank you. So the subject premise, if I read your information correctly, has a base rent of $204.26 per square foot, right?
Right.
Even considering your own rental comparables on your page 4, that's higher than the imputed rents you calculate on any of these, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So let's take a look at your page 2. And so as we look at both the pictures on page 2, this is a relatively small site, right? It's a little over 12,000 square feet in size.
Yeah, again, I don't have the access to the exact site.
Okay, but so let's consider then, so the convenience store portion is 416 square feet, right?
Yes.
And as we look at your overheads there, it looks like the canopy extends over almost a good chunk of the remaining site, right? Pump tanks and canopies, again, not assessed for business assessment purposes. You see that?
Well, I see I guess. So the question, I guess, what is your question? Yes, I see it.
Well, I'm asking you, so as you look at the pictures on page 2, you have a 400 out of 12, and I'll show it on my information, but the site size is 12,104 square feet. Of that, 416 square feet is the convenience store. The balance of the site certainly is utilized for the pumps, tanks, and canopies, which are not accessible for business assessment purposes, but you're suggesting need to be accounted for because they're present. Yes?
This site is the improvement site is 416 square feet. That is what assessed for business assessment.
So in looking at, I'm sorry, but in looking at your imputed rents, you've got here an extremely small site and you've got a base rent here that's much higher than any of the imputed rents that you show in your comparables. How can you tell me how that's adjusted for here?
So the rent for base area for subject property is model driven. Model accounts for various things, and so that's all I can tell you.
Okay, so in terms of the modeling requires actual inputs for actual rents, right?
A model accounts for various things using actual rents.
Using rents of gas stations.
I cannot speak to how model calculates the information.
So you've already agreed with me that there are no rents of the buildings themselves for gas stations, right?
Well, I think we've heard it on other.
And so I'm just refreshing his memory. So he's already agreed with that, right, Arca?
So we for gas stations we only have pad side rents.
Pad side leases only. Do you know if that was used in the modeling?
I cannot speak to what was used in the modeling.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
I know your answer is this is what the model produced. This is a 400 square foot building. The model's saying that the rent is $204 a square foot. I find that unbelievable. How can you possibly convince us that that would be the appropriate amount, considering that that's drawn from the total area, almost all of which we cannot attribute business assessment to? I don't understand.
The only thing I can say in relationship to this and is that we have best comparables provided here on page number 4 and 5, and most similar, and that was used previously, is comparable number 10, same size, same age.
And that rent for comparable number 10 of 150.27.
Correct.
Is that a reported rent? Is that the model rent?
That is rent arrived based on the pad side lease of $79,000. No, $64,918.
Sorry, so you are attributing the rent. We have no idea what's included in that whole area, but presumably if they're getting $64,000, almost $65,000 a year, it is an area a lot bigger than 432 square feet. Do you not agree? So this comparable.
Well, the kiosk on comparable number 10 is 432 square feet.
Comparable number 432 square feet. Am I looking at the right one? Yeah. Okay, so you're pointing me also to an example that is done the very same way as the subject, and I'm questioning how that's done. But you're sticking with that as your answer.
Well, I guess within the city of Winnipeg, we do not have very good comparables for gas stations. They are all owner-occupied or pad side leases. So we're using pad side lease, which is bare minimum. This is what the lot alone rents for, without any improvements.
Okay, let's no further questions.
Thank you. Gisela?
I have no questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Brad, you can proceed.
Thank you. And so we took a look and utilized the same approach that we've looked at previously. Excuse me. So this improvement was constructed in 2003. It's been reflagged. It was a Safeway gas bar. It's been reflagged, and you can see the pictures on our page 4. It's part of the now Sobeys operation arising from their acquisition of Safeways across Canada. And it's flagged as a shell operation, but it's run by Sobeys. So we took a look at the rental comparables on page 6. Again, these are, this one, subject property is in the St. Boniface area. The subject retail rents that we show here are going to be similar. They range in size, and I try to use the maximum size of a range. Nothing is as small as the subject premise at 416 square feet. It's tough to find any retail operation that can survive in a space that small without something else associated with it. Again, on page 7, the same land rents that we've applied. And so we're applying, as we did previously, $28 per square foot. There is no car wash again on this site. So we've applied $28 a square foot. Based on that 416 square foot size and $28 a square foot, on page 8, we're looking for a reduction to $12,660 based on that 416 square foot rent at $28. Thank you.
Thank you. Arkin, any questions?
So again, the comparables you're using are not true convenience stores, correct? They're not gas stations.
They're retail, well, two separate things. There are no leases of gas stations in terms of their buildings. There are only owner-occupied and pad leases. The pad leases are of no, in my view, the pad leases are of no probative value in trying to determine the premise base rent for something 416 square feet in size. That's why we've utilized the approach we have.
No, those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
No questions.
Zell?
No questions. Thank you.
And I have no questions. The next file is 1123 Gateway Road, and RK, you can proceed.
File number 195416, 1123 Gateway Road, business assessment ID 35713, owners Red River Cooperative Limited. So business assessment consists of 2 premises, premise 29688, 1,906 square feet, base ARV $34.30, with occupancy cost total annual rental value $70,020. Premise ID 29689, with premise area 1,843 square feet, base ARV 937 per square foot. With occupancy cost, annual rental value $21,780. Total annual rental value is $91,800. It's a gas station with a car wash. Same as previously, page 2 provides aerial view and street view of such property. Exactly the same comparables that City of Winnipeg uses for car washes and gas stations. And the last page, page 4, provides Board of Revision order for the realty side of the assessment. Again, net upgraded income presented by the Assessment and Taxation Department, so it didn't change. The rates per square foot did not change. Only what changes the capitalization rate of the realty board. That's all here. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad?
I actually just have a couple of questions. So generally speaking, in your experience, are car washes air conditioned?
For the most part, they're not.
They are not, but the city shows this one as fully air conditioned, correct?
Say yes.
Did you make any investigation of that?
I did not yet investigate it. It will have to be further reviewed.
Have you ever attended this gas station? Fill up your car, run through the car wash?
Not done that.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
No questions.
No questions. Thank you. Okay, Brad, you can proceed.
Okay, so I can tell you that car washes are not air conditioned. As we look through at every other one through this docket, or certainly the ones we've looked at so far, don't have air conditioning in the car washes. I used to live in North Kelowna, and I have been to this gas station many times. I've been through the car wash many times. It is not air conditioned, and so we have adjusted our occupancy costs to reflect no air conditioning in the touchless car wash. We go through a similar approach. We showed, again, different rental comparables based on this area on page 6. Again, these are not gas stations because there are no rents of gas station buildings. And we go through those and see the average and the median. We also show on page 7 the same had lease rents or land lease rents for these properties and the imputed rents from there. Again, we think that that is not the correct approach. And based on the age of the property, $28 a square foot is the rate that we've applied to the convenience store. We are accepting the department's $9.37 for this hearing for the car wash rate. Again, we have adjusted the occupancy costs, and you'll see that on page 8, where only the convenience store is shown as being air conditioned. And so we're looking for a reduction down to $79,200. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, any questions?
No, I guess all my questions are similar to the previous one, so no questions.
Thank you. Mark?
No questions.
Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
I have no questions.
See, we're going faster.
We're only halfway there.
I know. I'm working on it.
So the next file is 1947 Henderson Highway. In our EUC.
File number 195418, 1947 Henderson Highway, Business Assessment ID 29033, owners Red River Cooperative Limited. It's another gas station consisting of 2 premises, kiosk and a car wash. So premise ID 24424 with area of 450 square feet. Base ARV $186.75. With occupancy cost total annual rental value $85,140. And second premise is a car wash. Premise ID is 3887. Area 1288 square feet, $9.35 per square foot base rate. With occupancy cost $14,760 total annual rental value. Combined ARV $99,900. And such property is owner occupied. Page 2, street view and aerial view of such property. Page 3, as comparable city units for car washes and gas stations. And the last page, again, is a board of revision order with a decision that is based on the net operating income presented by the city and change cap rate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad?
Again, as with the property on Goulet, we have here a premise that's 450 square feet in size. And the model, and this is a question, the model has generated a rate of $186.75 per square foot, correct?
Correct.
Even looking at your rental comparables, that is at the upper boundary of your comparables 1 to 11, right?
Yes, it is.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
No questions.
So,
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Okay, Brad.
So we've taken a very similar approach as we've seen already today. And page 6, we show the rental comparables again. Number 13 is the gas kiosk, and it's within one building built in 2009, 5589 square feet, which is the size that the city shows physically present for the structure, the standalone structure, 564 a square foot overall. The rental comparables are the same as on Gateway. It's a similar North Kelowna location. Given its age, we've applied again $26 a square foot. Nothing 450 square feet is going to rent for $186 in terms of its occupancy. And the other, I haven't gone over it, yes. Gone over it yet, but on page 2, in each and every one of our briefs, I cite both the Municipal Assessment Act and the City of Winnipeg Charter with respect to business assessments. And if we look at section 17 sub 16, in determining an annual rental value for purposes of a business assessment, an assessor shall determine the annual rental value by such method or in such manner that the annual rental value determined by the assessor is, and we bolded this, fair and just in relation to the annual rental values assigned to other assessable property. It doesn't say same properties. It doesn't say gas stations to gas stations. It says other assessable property. And so whatever methodology they've applied here has not arrived at an appropriate annual rental value to gas stations, and that's why we're talking about these today. So I know I hadn't gone over that earlier, but I just wanted to touch base with you or just draw that to your attention. So again, at $26 a square foot for the 450 square feet. Again, just the C-store or the convenience store is air conditioned. We show the occupancy costs on page 8, and we're looking for a reduction based on all of that to $27,540. Thank you.
I guess my questions will be the same as previous, so I don't have new questions to add.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, sorry, just to get you to repeat some numbers. The number you're using for the kiosk itself with 26 something or other, is that correct?
Hang on. So we have applied here $935 to the car wash and $26 to the convenience store, 450 square feet. And so we have a total of 1,738 square feet, overall 1,366.
Okay, good, thank you, that's all. Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. So we'll move on to 610 Kildare. And Archie, you can proceed.
File number 195439, 610 Kildare, business assessment ID 38833. Business name Kern Park Shell, owners 5400627 Manitoba Limited. It's a gas station with a car wash. The kiosk area is 986 square feet at $33.93 per square foot. And the car wash area is 4,820 square feet at $8.10 per square foot. Total annual rental value for all premises $85,080. Page 2 provides a picture of the structure property, and page 3 provides comparables city uses for gas stations and car washes. And last page is the Board of Revision order for the subject property with the realty appeal, where the decision was made to maintain the net operating income presented by Assessment and Taxation Department and the capitalization rate to be changed to 7%. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Brad?
Okay, excuse me. So this property, the convenience store, is 986 square feet, yes?
Correct.
The previous one was 450 square feet, and the one before that was 416 square feet. Can you tell me how you get from $200 a square foot down to $33.93 per square foot applied to this one, when you're talking about a difference of about 500 or 600 square feet in size?
I see a point. I just my answer is rate per square foot is model driven. So that's all the explanation I can give you.
Okay. Do you know if the model, in terms of car washes, do you know if the model differentiates between what I'll describe as a tunnel wash versus a drive-in wand wash?
To my knowledge, there is no differentiation between the different types of car washes.
Okay. Do you know? Sorry. Do you know if your rental comparables 13 and 14 shown on page 3, do you know if those are wand washes or tunnel washes?
I do not have information as to what type of car washes they are.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
Where is 1761 Covenant?
Intersection or?
The way that you can describe it.
Okay. Well, it's in it's located in the in a multi-tenanted facility from what it looks like.
In what?
Multi-tenanted facility.
Where?
Well, it's located in on Pembina Street, between Adama Road on the south and Chevrier on the north, or Manahan on the north.
And is it on the east side or the west side of Pembina?
Okay, it's on the west side of Pembina.
And the wand washes would always be a larger building than the tunnel wash at a gas station?
I don't think there is a specific pattern as to one being larger than the other.
If it is larger, generally speaking, somewhat lower rent per square foot than the smaller one?
Well, there is an economy of scale that model attributes to the car washes. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, that's all.
Okay. Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Brad, you can proceed.
Okay. Quickly on page 7, again, we show a number of rental comparables. This particular premise was built in 1992. So, I mean, relatively speaking, it's a little bit older in terms of gas stations. You'll know that all the Red Rivers are somewhat newer as they've expanded over the years. And here we have a drive-in wand wash with a total of 4,820 square feet. The entire structure is wood frame, 986 square foot convenience store wood frame. We took a look at those rental comparables. Again, we show the same land lease or pad lease comparables. My approach is I show them, but my view continues to be that that's not an appropriate unit of comparison. And so based on that, its age, its location, $22 a square foot. For the purposes of this report, we are not disputing $8.10 per square foot. That's the rate applied to the car wash. We go through the calculations based on our rental rate for the convenience store and the car wash, shown on page 9. Again, no air conditioning in the car wash, and we're looking for a reduction to $73,320 based on all of that.
Is that it?
That's it. Thank you. I'm trying to go fast.
Perfect.
With respect to AC, it's down here at $335 in your calculation. So
Based on 986 square feet convenience store size.
just the convenience store size.
Yeah, and that I believe that is the same as the city has applied. Yeah, the city doesn't apply air conditioning to the car wash. It was only in that one, and sometimes it happens, but there isn't typically air conditioning in car washes at all.
I just wanted to verify that. Thank you. That's all.
Yeah.
No questions, thank you.
I just have one quick one. So on page 2 of your brief, no, I guess it's your page 1. You're showing the 2020 annual rental value at $78,780.
Yeah, sorry, it should be 85,080.
Oh, okay. That was my only question.
Yeah.
The next one is 2615 Phillips. And Harvey, you can proceed.
File number 195425, 2615 McPhillips Street, business assessment ID 31893. It's Red River Cooperative Limited is as owners. It's a gas station with a car wash. Kiosk area 1,364 square feet at $34.65 per square foot. And car wash area is 2,445 square feet at $8.99 per square foot. Combined total ARV with occupancy cost for the entire premise is $77,700. Page 2, the aerial and street view of the subject property. Page 3, comparables that city uses for the car washes and the gas stations. And the page, and the last page provides a board of revision order at the realty hearing. And there again, net operating income presented by the assessment and taxation department and changed capitalization rate of 6.45%. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad?
And so just one quick question. We've gone over the previous ones where one was 416 square feet, one convenience store was 450, the last one was 986. This convenience store is 1364 square feet. Do you know what the model uses in terms of its size groupings?
Again, I cannot speak to the model.
But you're here talking about the model.
But I cannot speak to the model as exactly what it uses.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
I'm looking at, other than the canopy, looks like 3 structures. two of them are car wash, two separate car washes, is that correct?
Let's see.
We provide additional detail in our brief.
Yeah, it looks like the kiosk is closer to McPhillips, and the buildings in the back would be the car washes.
Two car washes, okay, and obviously propane tank there. The what looks like small sheds on a grassed area, what's that all about?
I could probably answer that.
You can't.
I know, so I can investigate the information.
Been a long morning.
I cannot speak to the information on that.
No, okay, well, maybe the applicant can. All my questions, thank you.
Thank you. Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Brad, you can proceed.
Okay, just so I'll jump in here. I think that the sheds were a temporary vendor being located there and selling them from the site. That's what I think. So the original improvements were constructed in 2002. They were the 1,300, and it's on page 3, the description, 1,364 square foot convenience store and 1,045 square foot car wash. And then 2013, another car wash was added. And so that's why we have 2 tunnel washes on this site. So we've taken a very similar approach here as to the previous ones. On page 6 are a number of rental comparables. And here you'll see on Mandalay, because this property is on McPhillips, the bottom one, number 24, that's the Tempo car wash and kiosk, 1 unit. But you'll also see a number of other retail rents in or on McPhillips within that complex. And you'll see that those rents in terms of retail are significantly lower than what the city is suggesting by its model. Page 7, again, the pad leases or the land lease rents and the imputed rents. So based on its age and its location, we think $28 a square foot is the right rent to apply to the convenience store. We are, for the purposes of this report, $8.99 a square foot is accepted. That's for the 2 tunnel washes combined with their differential ages. And so we're looking for a reduction based on all of that, including occupancy cost for air conditioning only for the convenience store, where there is no disagreement on that. We're looking for a reduction to $68,700. Thank you.
You? Parker?
Oh, I don't have any questions.
Gisela?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. The next one is 2535 Main Street. And Arca, you can see.
File number 195423, 2535 Main Street. Business assessment ID 35027. Owners are Red River Cooperative Limited. It's another gas station with a car wash. So kiosk area is 3,089 square feet at $32.81 per square foot. And the car wash area 2,605 square feet at $12.53 per square foot. Total combined annual rental value with occupancy cost for all premises $147,060. Next page provides aerial view of the subject property. It's with a kiosk and a separate building for a car wash. Page 3 provides comparable City of Winnipeg uses for gas stations and car washes. And the last page is a board of revision order for the realty assessment of the subject property. And, there it's the net operating income has been adjusted as well as the cap rate. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad?
Again, and I'm maybe the assessor can just confirm that he doesn't know. So this one is, the convenience store is over 3,000 square feet. about triple the size of the one on Kildare, but it only looks like an adjustment of 10 to 12%. But a similar adjustment isn't made going downwards from that to the 4 to 500 square foot range. And you don't know why, correct?
So all I can say is the model calculates the prices per square foot.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Car wash in this case is, the rent you're using is $12.53, whereas before we've been down around $9. What attributes, or to what do I attribute that change?
From the looks of it, it most likely is the age. This is the 2005 building.
The other ones are not that old.
There
The
are
car washes.
the other ones from what I remember were a bit older. They were in the 90s.
All right. Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Giselle?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Okay, Brad.
So again, same kind of approach. We use the same rental comparables for this one on Main Street as we did the one on McPhillips. And so based on its age here, we've applied 28 or are suggesting $28 a square foot. And Mr. Pereski was quite correct. $12.53 a square foot is a little out of whack when you consider the assessor's rental comparables and the previous ones on today's docket, and $9 a square foot would be something closer to what the model should generate, but who knows why. So we go through the calculations on, oops, that's not the right one. Go through the calculations on our unnumbered page 8. I apologize that they're not numbered, they should be. And we're looking for a reduction rounded based on all of that to $123,000 based on that rent on the C-store and $9 a square foot on the car wash. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, any questions?
No questions.
Mark?
No.
No questions. Giselle? No questions. And I have no questions.
I see the panel members scribbling notes like crazy. If I'm going too fast, I'll slow down. Just let me know.
No, we're good at doing this.
Okay.
Next one is 160 Watson.
So file number 195646, 160 Watson Street, business assessment ID 2111. Business name Boyd Auto Body and Glass. Owners 3364,977. 3364,977 Manitoba Incorporated. It's a 15,016 square feet premise with base ARV of $13.93 per square foot. With occupancy cost, total annual rental value is $241,140. So it's from the looks of it, it's not an owner occupied. The lease information provided that it's a 2005 lease with a reported area of 12,000 square feet, $12 per square feet. So obviously, since I would go with the information we have on file about the premise of 15,016 square feet to be used for further calculations. So we have page 2 is a subject property street view and aerial view. Page 3 provides comparables of the vehicle service garages with average of $13.95 per square foot and median $12.50 per square foot. Same comparable was used in the previous vehicle service garage for this hearing already. And last page is a board of revision order with the confirmation of the value. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad, you may proceed.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. And I didn't quite catch you when you were describing the areas of the building. Maybe you could just repeat that for me.
Okay, so premise area is 15,016 square feet.
Yeah. And you said something different was reported.
On the, income and expense area reported 12,000 square feet.
Okay. And you don't know where that difference might lie?
I did not review the file fully to get the to find out the difference nowadays. I don't know.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark?
What is going on here? This doesn't look like a normal auto body place. What are all these vehicles doing parked in this space?
Yeah, I didn't do the inspection on the subject property, so from the review of it, we are treated as a auto body and glass based on the type of premise it is.
As far as you know, they are doing auto body repairs inside that building.
That's the information we have, yes.
And their only advertising is what we see above the front door there where it says Boyd Auto Body. There's no street sign or anything. Oh, yes, there is. Sorry. Now I see. Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Zell?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. Okay, Brad?
Thank you. And so once upon a time, this was actually owned by Gauthier, the Gauthier Auto Group. They hived this off and they've sold the building to Boyd Auto Body. We did the 2020 Realty appeal on it as well. And so we show some overheads and some obliques on page 4. To my knowledge, Gauthier does not utilize the lot for storage of vehicles. So we haven't attributed anything to that. And my guess is that it's touch-ups from vehicles that arrive very often when they come off the trains, and that there's some damage been occurred, so they send them in for touch-ups. So we took a look at the 14,208 square feet. Yes, it's built in 2004. This is not a location that has exposure to traffic unless you know where you're going and going here. It's not something you're going to be aware of. And if you look at the surrounding area, it's multi-res and some single family in close proximity on Watson Street. So it's got C3 zoning, but this is more of a residential area. On page 4, at the top picture, you'll certainly see some of them there. Similarly, on the bottom picture, just in the top left-hand corner, you'll see. So it's abutting. This is coming back from Main Street, and it's abutting a residential area. We took a look at some rental comparables. VSGs again, I did not include in this one the 1500 Regent, which is another auto body shop. And you can see there the rental range is $745 for an average, median $748 per square foot. With its age and with consideration of its location, we've applied $10 per square foot. We think that that's the appropriate rate. That's an adjustment of whatever you want to call it, 25% over the median or average. And so we go through the calculations on page 7. We're looking for a reduction based on all of that to $182,100 $182,100. Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mark?
Do you know the date of your Google Earth photos?
Yep. Maybe current. So let me pull them up. Okay, bear with me. Oops.
It's always helpful to know how old or how recent these are.
Yeah, typically what I do is, unless there's, if I'm dealing with older appeals, I'll go back on their timeline. But these will be the current pictures that were offered. So physical condition current. Let me just. Yeah, typically they do show the date on them. These don't, and I've blown up the pictures.
Okay.
So they will, I can tell you that they were not timeline searched. So it's whatever they have as a current perspective on these.
And these photos were recently accessed.
Yes. I did not use these photos in the realty appeal hearing, which I also did, but I did add them in here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Giselle.
I'm just wondering, does that say 2002 in the left-hand bottom corner?
No, that's the timeline. If you click on that, you'll get a little bar in the upper left-hand corner, and that's where you can use the little time slider to go to different dates.
Right, thank you.
What did we ever do before Google?
Any other questions?
No, that's it. Perfect, thank you.
And I have no questions. Thank you. So we're down to the last one. 155 King Edward Street.
And you were pessimistic.
File number, should I say?
Yeah.
Okay. File number 195347, address 125 King Edward Street East. Business assessment ID 4289, owners Manitoba Public Insurance Corporation. So the premise consists of two sections. Section 1 is 8,486 square feet at 1226 per square foot, and the second premise is 9,208 square feet at $13.21 per square foot. With occupancy cost, total annual rental value is $265,860. Premises owner occupied. Page 2 provides pictures for the subject property, street view and aerial view. Page 3 are the vehicle service garage comparables, City of Winnipeg users. They're exactly the same as the ones we've seen before in this hearing. And the last page provides a board of revision order with the value confirmed at the realty appeal. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Brett.
Okay, I have a few questions, and I'll be brief because I know we're running short on time. This property is classified by the department as a vehicle service related building, right?
Correct.
And so, what defines a vehicle service related building?
Well, the ability to for a vehicle to drive into the building, for it to be viewed or repaired at the site.
Viewed or repaired?
Or some estimations provided in this case.
Okay. So in this particular case, have you had an opportunity to look at any photos of the subject property?
Well, just the ones that I have provided. Page 2 of my report.
Yeah, and so bear with me while I open that up again. So as we look at your page 2, there's nothing for showing the interior of the property, right?
I don't have pictures showing.
Okay. Were you aware that no servicing of vehicles goes on here?
Well, it is a Manitoba Public Insurance building, so they do
Right.
not do any repairs inside. the vehicles to drive in there for the estimate purposes. So,
And are you aware that MPI has moved away from that model and the auto body shops now provide the estimates?
auto body shops provide estimate, but MPI, to my knowledge, also still provides estimates.
Okay. Would there from that be, or arising from that, would there be an underutilization of this facility?
Excuse me?
Arising from MPI's, let's call it farming out estimating, would you conclude from that that there is something of an underutilization of this facility?
I cannot speak as to whether the property has been fully utilized or underutilized. It's, we are looking at business assessments strictly based on price per square.
Okay. So as we're looking in terms of a VSG, as we look at these in terms, all of your rental comparables are body shops, muffler shops, brake shops, tire shops, correct?
Correct.
None of them deal with the quote unquote viewing of vehicles, right?
Actually, body shops do provide that service. Not every vehicle that enters the body shop is being repaired at that very body shop. Like, so yes, some businesses in my list.
And in fact, in terms of body shops, that's not their primary function. Their primary function is the repair and of the bodywork, the repair, collision repair, and repainting of vehicles, right? None of those functions go on here. Correct?
So the comparables I have, to be short, vehicle service related businesses that deal with mechanical or body repair of the vehicles.
Okay. As you look at the interior of MPI facilities, isn't it true that the interior of the vehicle area is more like a warehouse than anything vehicle service related?
When you look at the, again, I haven't looked at it, but subject property is capable of driving a vehicle in, technician to view the vehicle throughout, all around. How they do it, I don't know, but it's a vehicle service garage because of that.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first of your premises is the office part, and that's at 1226 a square foot. The second part is what the applicant is referred to as the warehouse, and it's at 1321. Why is that part higher rent per square foot than the office part?
With the information I have, is I have two separate H buildings, 1972 and 1985. So most likely the newer would be attributed to the vehicle service area, and that being newer would generally start higher.
Do you think the newer building is, or which do you think is the newer building?
I think
the warehouse part or the office part?
Well, I'll have to think that the newer building will have to be the vehicle service garage section of the building, not the office.
How did they do their work before when they just had offices? I guess my second question,
Yeah.
I'll continue, and that is, if you look at the south end of the office building, it looks like there's a separate structure. Is that a separate structure that was added later, and that is the new part?
Maybe that is the one to.
Okay, so you're not sure. Is this total building not very much like what we see in industrial parks, where there's a warehouse with offices attached?
Well,
And is that not a comparable type of building?
well, warehouse is a little bit different in a way that the interior finish of the building is not the same. So when you look at the warehouse, there are interior buildings in respect to, in my opinion, in respect as to subject property.
All my questions.
And Giselle,
My questions have been answered, thank you.
thank you, and I have no questions. Brad, you may proceed.
Thank you. So I'm going to expand on Mr. Boreski's question. Our information shown on page 3. The original structure was all built in 1972. It had a plan and gross floor area 15,590 square feet. And he was quite correct in that there was a small addition, 2,104 square feet, which when you look at the overheads would appear to be an addition to the office area or the westernmost structure on the site. That was built in 1985 with a reported 10-foot wall height area, which also, in my view, would lead to the conclusion that that's an office area, not the drive-in vehicle inspection area. So you can see on page 3, the site is irregular in shape. I'm sure we've all driven by it 1,000 times. Its configuration is not the most efficient in the world, but it's what they have and it's what they're dealing with. So this property was inspected by our office. I was not in it, but it was inspected by our office, and I have relied on the pictures I've attached at the rear of our submission on page 9 and following for the description of the physical details of the property. You can see their office area, file storage, boardrooms. We do include a floor plan on page 16. And you can see what appears to be on the upper left-hand corner. That would be the expanded area, or what I believe to be the expanded area in 1985. That's confirmed on page 17 by the city's own records with respect to the building structures. And so we took a look at some rental comparables on page 6. And you'll recall earlier this hearing, we were talking about Board of Revision orders. And here, this is what the Board of Revision did hear this property for the 2020 Realty Appeal, issued its order September 30th, 2019, and they reduced the assessment, but the order was not specific with respect to the adjusted net operating income. So I've shown a number of rental comparables ranging in size from as small as 5,000 square feet up to 44,000 square feet. Interestingly, the one on Main Street, comparable number 4, built in 2010, that's also an MPI service center. That's the one on Main Street on the west side of Main as you're driving northward. 44,000 square feet includes both levels. It was a built to suit in 2015 at 1073 per square foot overall. Much newer than a subject, but the same, like the current owner of this premise versus the tenant in that premise, same party, MPI. So we do show the rental comparables starting at page 18, and I'm not going to go over them, but they're various vehicle service related facilities. The one on page 19 is top one is a Sturgeon Tire. The bottom one is the MPI Service Center on Main Street that I've referred to, and then we go on with some other ones on Sargent Avenue, which is a vehicle service garage. There's also a body shop as part of it. And then the Boyd Auto Body on King Edward, which we've already looked at. Morey Street we've looked at previously, and then the other one on King Edward Street as well. So based on all of that, I calculate out $10.25 a square foot should be the appropriate rate applied to this property in this location with this land area. And so based on all of that, we're looking at the calculations on page 7. $10.25 a square foot. We don't disagree with the air-conditioned office area. or only the office area is air conditioned here. And so we're looking for a reduction to 221,580 square feet. Just for your reference, there's no disagreement about the air conditioned area. It's just that it's only in the office. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark, questions?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Mark?
No questions, thank you.
I just have one question, Brad. You mentioned that the realty was reduced at the border revision.
Yep.
Well, if I go to the assessment read, looks like it was confirmed. Page 5 is brief.
Hang on. Well, I'm looking at 160 Watson. Hang on. So what I was sent for, it looks like that order's for 160 Watson. This is 125 King Edward.
Yeah, I just saw that. So the wrong.
So it looks like the assessor has attached, but let me pull up the order for you very quickly. 2 seconds, and I will screen share with you. King Edward 125.
Yeah.
Yeah, hang on. Realty order revision order. There we go. Now I'm going to screen share. Let me share that one. There we go. So let me reduce this in size a little bit. So you will see at the bottom that so this is for 125 King Edward Street, which is the subject premise, MPI. You can see the board order, yes? Yeah. Okay. And so you see there the reduction in the realty assessment, and you'll see there that it says based on an adjusted net operating income.
Yeah, my apologies. I thought
Yeah, no worries.
was the right order. And it was
Yeah, you had me concerned.
okay, thank you. Any questions?
No questions.
No questions.
And I have no questions. We made
Look
it.
at that.
We made it. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Are we adjourned?
We are adjourned.
Good morning or afternoon. Thank you.